All right, I believe we are live. So, welcome everybody to Saber Academy here. Our last class in August. We are going to be taking a little break next week. We've got the first certification workshop for the ASL rule set, the French rule set. For that. So if anybody is interested in that, go to our page, go to our different sources, and you'll probably find a link somewhere there to the event, to the Eventbrite, and all that kind of thing. So that's going to happen next week. So we will not come here but we will be picking up sometime in September as well. So here. So to finish out the month, I thought I'd go over a little bit of detail work. So we have now two different types of kind of people that are officially following us now, right? We've opened it up here so that not only do we have apprentices, but we have students. And from this group of students, people who are choosing to follow our system and all of that, we will then pick out apprentices, right? So what separates these two as far as knowledge? Now, an apprentice is an actual kind of officer of TPLA, so it's not just a kind of skill thing. It's not really a rank, right? It's something that we can go for for teaching and all of that, for people who are interested in the teaching and all that kind of stuff. But where that's going here is Shicho, which is our main form, our first form, our foundation form. We've got a lot of stuff out there on it. So we've got tons and tons and tons and tons of videos where I'm talking about it, where other people are talking about it. Shicho is by far the most talked about and demonstrated form on this channel. And that's not by accident. We want it that way. We think that Shicho is and it's been designed to be the cornerstone of everything else. Now, how that relates to everything is, how do you take a style that is so seemingly stripped down and direct and clear, right, and make that relevant to things that are completely different? And where do we find the keys to applying Shicho as we go forward? So when we get to our second form, our third form, our fourth form, what are we taking from Shicho and applying it there? And where are we getting these lessons? Where's the first time we're going to see this? Because everything is contained here. I have asked classes a lot of times when I was in France, I asked everybody, if there was one thing that you wanted to practice all of the skills for the forms, what would you do? The answer was form 1. If you do Shicho, you are practicing all of the forms. Right. I mean, that is mostly what I practice. If you come to our classes, that is almost all we practice. Every now and then we'll take something from something else. But if you stick with this, there's really nothing you can't do. So how do you take that idea and actually make it work? Well, we're going to go through that. So a lot of this has to do with looking at things that are undefined. So they are kind of conceptual, right? So we have things that are direct and we have things that are conceptual, right? Or we have things that are concrete, right? So if I'm here like this and doing these little parries, this is our concrete, right? I do this, and here's the technique to do all of these, right? All of these parries here have particular techniques, right? But how do these particular movements and these parries then relate to, say, Suresu, where we're going to be talking about defense and we're going to be talking almost entirely about parries, right? How do we take something so simple and so seemingly non-expansive and blow it up to that, right? And that really what it comes down to is we have to start looking at these things in deeper terms, right? So what I'm doing here, right, is not just this. Now, this is also going to be dictated by the level by which you are at. When you are first starting out, I would not recommend diving deep necessarily into all of these things, but just know that they're there, right? You don't want to overburden your mind, especially at the beginning with stuff. Just take the straight out things and just work on the technique. I want this here, I want this here, I want this here, right? There's a lot of stuff that we do in training that we do not necessarily do in free play, right? So for instance, going back and forth with this, right? It is very rare that you're going to do this more than twice, right? The idea, even I've never really known to do 2 parries down at that level, right? The most I'll do is do 1, and then I'll usually go up high because their weapon is low, right? That seems to be the intuitive process, right? However, there is value in practicing this. This is this is a training thing. We'll say that a lot. This is for training, right? Later on, you may get the question, well, what is it used for? And you may start to think, oh, well, it's just a training thing, so it's not really used for anything. And that's where I want to kind of turn people's attention, right? When we say something is just for training, we probably shouldn't use the word just, right? When we say it's used for training, that means it's going to be used for a whole lot of things, right? Now, when we get into later stages, like we get into Suresu and we do orbits. Now, this is going to become a very, very important concept for orbits because orbits are very conceptual. You will probably not do this for a long time in free play. You just don't want to do that. It's not necessarily, going to be conducive for what you're doing, right? 1 or 2 here or there, okay, but right? So you have to figure out, okay, how am I going to take this exercise, this thing that we do, right? And where do I apply it? What use is it, right? Go back to your Shicho and start looking at these little things and see how we apply these things. And that will give you a clue on how you're going to take the more complicated stuff and do the same thing, right? So we'll take the parries, right? We have this here like this. So why do we do this if this is not, if we don't do it in fighting, right? Well, there's a couple of reasons. Number one, let me tilt this down here a little bit so you can see my feet. Okay, so for number one, we're talking about parrying here at the legs, right? Well, a lot of times when we're that low, and we talked about this last week, when you are that low, a beat is kind of needed in order to get enough leverage, enough force to oppose a strike coming into your leg, right? Now, in order for that to happen, you have to, if I parry here and they're going for this leg, I'm still getting hit, right? What I have to do is I have to go here. And the same thing over there. So really, I'm not doing this, right? I'm doing this, right? There's a little bit of body in there, right? And that's going to get me the extra movement that I'm looking to get out of it, okay? And it's going to put my weapon on the outside of my line. And that's, of course, where I want it, right? Now, any rule set, and this is going to be especially true for like Duanbing or for anything like that, we need to do good parries. And a good parry is that we stop the strike, right, from hitting us. We actually arrest it. So you see, you have to cheat it out here. The most common mistake when people are practicing this is what I'm doing here, right? And you notice I've got angles on each side, right? If I'm trying to oppose a strike coming from this side, this isn't going to cut it, nor is this, right? Yet, this is the intuitive way. What we have to do is we just have to add just a tad bit of body in there, and that's going to get us to the other side. Now, what does that tell us? There's another string, two. We'll go two, right? And when I'm doing this, why don't I just do this, right? Well, number one, because the like I said, the intuitive thing to do when somebody comes down and you parry a low strike is to come up high, right? Allowing your saber to kind of go back and forth will there we go. Okay. Will, allow you to do this. It will also kind of keep your weapon in their face, right? But more than likely, you're probably going to parry something up here anyway, right? Plus, what we want to do is we want to get the range of motion here, right? This is not necessarily an easy or intuitive thing to do, right? So it's something that we have to train, that we have to put a pattern into our body. We have to program this, right? There. Now I'm using bad form here because this is supposed to come from here from low guard. I was holding up here a little high so I could show you. Now this is a good point here. Why don't I do it here? Because we might as well be here to get more of a good parry here, or you can kind of do these. You can do covering strikes, which will get you inside. We're going to go into that in a second. Okay. So there's something there, right? We're never going to necessarily do that kind of thing, right? But the value of doing it in practice means that we're going to have all of these different skills that we can then apply in specific manner to our opponent or in response to our opponent. All right. So, good. So that's a good example for a parry, right? So when we're talking about the parries, we have these three parries. We have turning, right? Shifting. Okay. We can call this lifting or pressing or whatever, right? Really, though, what we're going here for is we've got different types. And I think we talked about this last week as well, right? We have receiving parries, which means we are receiving a strike, right? We're just holding our weapon there and allowing it to hit, boom, and creating a barrier, okay? You have deflecting, right? It's coming in here. I'm going to intercept it here, and it's going to slide off, right? Same thing if I go here from a thrust, it's going to slide through here this way, okay? I go here, boom. They're going to be on my center, but since this is on my center, it's just going to guide them off, right? And then we have beats, where we're going to hit the strike coming in, okay? This is why we don't necessarily use the term block a whole lot, because that's, which one is a block? They kind of all are. They're all parries. We don't necessarily make a distinction between that kind of thing. We just make this distinction between the type of parry that you're doing, right? So any type of defensive action where you're using your weapon to stop another weapon in there, okay? So from there, you can see, if I'm doing these right here, right? Boom, here. You see? Here's where those parries are coming in. Okay? Now, when I'm using them for real, or in a fight or something like that, that's probably what they're going to do. I'm not going to go around, right? But again, this patterns these movements, right? You see how close the blade is to my body. I don't want it kind of out like that. I want it very vertical, right? Not only for safety, right? But the exercise of wielding my sword close to my body so that when I get inside and to close range, I'm not worrying about this coming up against me. This is something that we have to worry about with lightsaber that we don't necessarily have to worry about with regular swords. The regular swords blades can touch us all the time, but these can't. So when we're coming in, we want to be able to hold our saber and everything so that we can get enough space, right? But we're not going to go off the line so that they can come over here. Because if I'm constantly parrying way over here, right, they can feint, ha, and now easy. It's an easy tag, right? Very, very quick. So when you get to Saresu and you get to something here like this, you're going to be thinking about things like this. Are these cuts? Well, when we're doing Saresu, these are not cuts. But if we change over to Ataru, ooh, you see? Now we start getting cuts. But you see, we're just basically turning this over and going through, okay? That's going to take a combination of techniques, right? This is what we're doing here in Shicho. We're taking these simple combinations of three, and we're putting them together into all kinds of different shapes, right? And different things will have different utilities. Let's talk about footwork. Footwork is thus. We have, right, our hut slides, okay? Very, very fundamental, okay? Two-handed, one-handed, right? Okay? This is a body motion. This is a physical feat, right? Being able to move your stance, right? Notice I'm not coming in. I'm staying here, right? I'm pushing off the back leg. When I'm going forward, when I'm going backward, I'm pushing off the front leg. Okay? This is what it's training here. Okay? Now, we have of course, our full step, right? But we also have our three-phase step. Right? Now, when you're moving in a form, sometimes you separate things up, right? Three-phase step is one of those things. Boom, and boom, boom, boom. Okay? So, while you're not going to necessarily do that, right? What do you use the three-step phase in combat for? Right? Well, that's where, when we say something is a training tool, this is the question you ask. Well, what is it training? Right? Three-phase step is training a lot of things. First off, we do not want to step directly through. We don't want to get monster walk, right? We always want to gather our center even when we're coming through here. You see? Now, when we do that, you notice I have a little bit of a side-to-side motion, okay? And that's what we're always kind of looking for because we know we're probably going to have a weapon right in our face. So when I go, I got to go to the side, right? Same thing here. Boom. Okay? But doing that, we get into a strategy like that, but that doesn't come until later, right? Because that, you need another skill, okay? But if you try to do that right at the beginning, what will almost inevitably happen is this, okay? You can see it the most with people, second trajectory of the Shicho, doing these, right? It is very easy to get into, right? Kind of a Frankensteining kind of thing, right? When we have to make it fluid, right? So how do we do that, right? we have to use that three-phase step concept in our head, right? As we come through, we're putting our weight into this leg. When we go over to here, we don't just do this, okay? We come in and then out. You see? So, whoop, whoop. Okay. Now, this shows you another thing. There's a lot of stuff that is hidden in forms, right? There's stuff that is explicitly taught, right? Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, right? But then there's a whole myriad of stuff which is not taught, which is just kind of in there. Some of it's optional, right? Some of it's for specific circumstances, right? But others is there because that is something that's supposed to be kind of fluidly integrated into the whole thing. And that's where we get the difference between principle and technique, all that kind of thing. Right here is where you're going to find your hut slides, right? You see, this is basically a hut slide where we're going to end up in the kneeling position. See how that foot kind of slides back in? So, rather than thinking of crash, 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 we're thinking of whoosh, whoosh, right? Sliding in, right there. We get this contraction when we step in, okay? Now, other utility for that, right? If I'm coming in, they figure out what I'm doing, I can still abort, right? Whereas if I'm here, it's very difficult for me to, as I'm throwing this leg forward, because I have to commit more to it, right? As I'm going like this, it's to throw, to throw it back. I'm going to stall, right? I come in here, that's easy, right? Come up, oh, no, that's not going to work. There. Now, later on, you get into things like triangle stepping, some people call it, but it's essentially the stance switch where we're here, boom, like that, right? This is very important because we always want to be able to use one of our feet as kind of a sensor, right? This is one of our feet is going to tell us where we're standing, okay? In Tai Chi, we distinguish it between yin and yang. The yang leg is the one that's giving us most of the information. And the yin leg is the one that is going to be doing the stepping or doing the moving, dependent on what information you're getting from the standing leg, right? So if we take like a Tai Chi type of movement, you'll see that as well, right? Even anything like this, anytime you lift up your leg, right? That's what you're doing, is you're bringing your center back into one of your legs, right? Like this, before stepping out, okay? And that's very, very important, right? That way you do not have to commit to a step that's too wide. There. Now, how do you do something like that, right? Well, the trick is this foot. And you get into that when you get into form 2. So we won't confuse the issue, but it's there, right? How do you make diagonal steps kind of off that way, right? You'll get there, right? Right now, we don't have to worry about that. What we have to worry about is moving forward, moving backward, moving in and out of range, okay? All right. Now, applying this stuff in combat or in free play or whatever you want to do it, we've got lots of videos showing how to do that. When you do these things in free play, they tend to look different. Don't let that fool you. You have to kind of use your imagination, use a little bit of creativity to see, okay, what's going on here, right? When I'm doing stuff like this, if I'm not playing ASL rules, more than likely not going to do that. I might, But more than likely, it's not going to occur to me, right? Because there's no reason for me to do it. If I were to take my saber behind me in a one-on-one duel, not using ASL rules, right? As they come around, I'll maybe try to parry something and then bring it back to my forward so I can do a strike. Maybe, right? More than likely, though, I'm just going to do something like that, right? That doesn't mean that I should never train this, right? Because the ability to kind of do this is going to enhance my ability to do that because it's a smaller circle, but it's still the same pattern. My body doesn't know the difference, right? And as I'm coming around here like this, the important thing, like not raising your shoulder up towards your ear, right? Bringing it forward, pointing it before bringing it across the target, right? All of these things are trained with something like that, okay? Sure, not necessarily going to see it when you're fighting, say, TSL rules or Duan Bing rules or something like that, because again, it doesn't have a whole lot of utility in that sense, okay? You do it in ASL rules, it's a great, convenient, easy, and high percentage engagement arming technique, right? But that's specific, right? Regardless, practicing this around here is going to put in body mechanics, strike mechanics, right? As I move here, you see, I have to turn my body. Here's where I'm using that footwork there. If I do Rothtar's wheel, you see, I'm kind of doing a backward three-phase step and then a forward there. You see? There. Now, things to watch out for here. Make sure that you're going across your target. Don't do that. When I come here, you see? That's a little sloppy, right? I'm distracting myself by trying to talk. But you see, where I really want that sweet spot is when I come through here, I can draw a line with my tip. There, okay? Bringing my saber back here. That's important, right? I need to know that this is a place I can stop my saber. So if I'm fighting and no matter what I'm doing, if I strike out and I miss, I can pull it back in here and then I'm not out of control, right? Boom. As long as your hands are essentially in front of your center, right here, like this, okay? Even here, it's like that, you see? I don't want to do this. I don't want to throw my hands up over here. I want to keep them right here. And so if I'm here like this, to bring my saber back, I turn my body, right? There's your lesson, okay? When you have run out of room, turn your body, okay? There. That movement there, patterns. It gets you used to it, right? Right? There are parries where I can bind somebody here and go underneath it, and now I'm standing next to them, right? That's the stuff that kind of comes out of there, right? You can be creative with the stuff. Okay, so with the accelerations, we want to make sure that we're getting the concepts with the, right? So the honor sash is easy, right? This is our downward slashing, rending strike. Very, very powerful. It's our most powerful strike that's intended to kind of go through targets and all of that kind of thing. Sarlacc sweep, right? Well, here, before we move on, let's talk about the shim and the Cho as well, because we're going to take this and we usually show this inside because that's the biggest thing. But remember, you can take all of these things and show it. Now, usually, when we do it here, just to keep it clear, we try to do Chos to the forward leg. You can totally do them here. It's just, this helps us in our training, right? Boom. But knowing what's going to happen here, we're going to chop that way, right? Am I going to swing, slash, something like that? Or as I come through, just shim, just tag them, right? All of these motions are the same, right? As I'm coming through here, that's pretty much it, right? Boom, ha. Ha. That holds true for every strike you have, right? Hence the lesson, okay? Everything is expansive. Yes, you have the steps, right? But understand, there is depth. There are things that you can work on above and beyond this kind of stuff, but you have to master the first steps first, right? Know which one's your shim, which one's your shak, which one's your cho, sai, all of that, okay? Know your positions, right? It's fairly simple. But simple is often very difficult. So there you go. Okay, so we'll take a look at Sarlacc sweep here, same way. I don't have as much room here, there. But remember, we have this position here, whether you're in here. Now, when we do Cho, we have our thing here, right? Which means most of our arc in Sarlacc sweep like this is coming from our body, not from our arms. Okay, so Sarlacc sweep, we are connecting our body and our arms, right? We do not want this feeling where we're twisted up here like this. We want to feel this, right? That's why you walk with this so much, because it's a very natural kind of walking thing. As I go here, I can bring that hip through, right? Now, this is what we do with the sai, right? So a sai, we're going to take our body up and down through that entire arc, right? And it's dependent on our body. Cho, we're going to stay in our, here like this, right? In our do bag. Okay, and with our shim, ooh, ooh, right? We're keeping that there. Again, the hands relative to the body, relative to the sternum, don't move much, right? This is a body-centric movement, okay? All right, last one, Sun Jam. Now, we were talking about this a little bit before. I made one error in shooting this acceleration way back when and decided to keep it in. And now it is stuck in there. I can't get it out. So let's reiterate this thing here. When you're doing Sun Jam Sai Cha, our idea is that this is a horizontal energy, okay? Like that, right? I'm coming up and I'm covering up this weapon, okay? The movement is used a lot in military, Saber, Dandao Faosuen. If you're reading the blog, I'm publishing some translations of that. But where you have a long weapon that you have to kind of move down in order to get at the person that is wielding it, right? So a spear in, say, Ming Dynasty China was at the shortest 10 feet long. So you had essentially 10 feet to traverse there. You're not going to go from tip to the other guy without them being able to withdraw and stab you. So what you're going to do is you're going to move the weapon off the line here, boom, and then push it down, right? At the same time as you do that, you come up, you kind of step up here like this, but you're kind of together here, okay? And then you're going to step down. Now that's going to carry you a long way. And if you were going down the shaft of the spear, you could very quickly get there. And then they have a very hard time because they'll probably be extended to come back and try to parry your strike out there. Plus you've got people on either side of you, yada, yada, yada. That's where it's coming from, okay? So let's think about that. The mistake that I made was as I was going in, I didn't flip this back and I went over just to Jedi guard here like this. We don't want to do that. Unfortunately, I didn't shoot enough pickup, so I had to use it. But anyway, when we're coming through here like this, okay, we're up like that. It's most evident when we're coming from here, okay? I'll do it from this side, then I'll do it from the other. When I come up, that's the action that I want. Boom. Now I'm kind of there. Their weapon should be there. There's a beat there, right? As I'm here, I'm beating it over this way, and then I'm covering over the top of it, right? That motion right there, boom, boom, is the most important part. Now, boom, boom. Okay, sure, totally. You can totally do that. However, for clarity, and what happens most of the time is if people are thinking about going into Jedi Guard, they do not go horizontal. They go like that, right? Whew. We want it to be there. So if I'm here like this, as you see, boom. Now my pommel's facing this way, and then I just step again here like this. And now the action with my arms is going to be this, right? Boom, okay? Now when I go here, flipping it back here like this. What we want to do is imagine this is a wheel. So it's pivoted here in the center, like that. You see? Boom. Okay. That's, again, it's this little manipulation right in there, which is really, really important. Now, it may take somebody a while to get the hang of that. That's a very subtle motion, right? So if we really concentrate on going horizontally, we go up to here and then we bring it back here like that. Here, it's going to have that effect. Boom. Okay. I usually go straight across. In this one, it doesn't necessarily matter if it's dipping down here a little bit. That's totally okay. But up, boom, then here, right? Because here what we want to feel is we want to feel a lot of action happening here in the hands, okay? The hands and the wrists. Flipping it around, okay? Coming through here like this. So later on, when you do the shorter strike, ooh, it can be very, very quick, right? So you see, I come over and I'm there. Same thing. Ooh. Now, add the footwork into that. You're basically coming off of the line. See if I have enough room here, right? You're coming off the line, hitting their saber that way. So all the momentum of theirs is going this way. That opens up your door for here, okay? And again, that is one of those lessons. Can you just, hit it and then go there? Absolutely, right? That's a different technique, right? But it follows the same kind of idea, right? That's the lesson. The lesson is opening somebody up and exploiting that opening. Right? Start with this very, very simple, very, very high percentage combination, right? I hit you over there to open this side, and then I go directly there. I don't have to switch sides, right? Sure, I could go here and then to there, right? But that takes time. If I can go here, here, very, very, very quick. Okay. Let's see. Now, I will go over one more thing here, and then I will open it up to the questions. And that is taking these accelerations and moving them into Dulan, and what we are looking for when we look for this, right? We want to see these, we want to see the face of these accelerations in the Dulan. We want to make it, we want to see that it's very, very clear that these exercises lead directly to this particular set, right? Shouldn't be too hard. There are portions which are identical to the accelerations, and then there are some things which kind of go off book, as it were. But what you want to do is you want to focus on those accelerations. Now, how do you get good at the accelerations? Looking at the formula, right? Take that formula. Don't look at it just as step one, step two, but know that there's depth and say, okay, how am I going to look at this? And now I need to express this concept here in this acceleration, right? Think of it that way. This is where the art comes in, right? We are expressing ourselves through human movement. There. Okay, so that's my spiel, as it were. I will go ahead and open it up here to questions to the people here. Does anybody have anything to ask right away? Yep, go ahead, James.
Let's talk about grip pressure, where your grip pressure tightens or loosens at various points. Where do you feel that?
Oh, okay. Grip pressure. So how hard, like how tightly you grip onto your saber is kind of important, right? And what he's talking about is that you're going to tend to squeeze it at certain points. What I would say the general rule of thumb is you stay relaxed until the moment that you try to hit something, right? And what you're trying to do, and this of course is a training issue, right? Something, a goal, right? You have to make that space, right, smaller and smaller and smaller, so that you can do that and then release immediately, right? So at first you may start to be squeezing right here, and you go through, and then you loosen up there right around here. As you get better, you're going to squeeze there. You're going to find these kinds of things. But yes, there is going to be a kind of a pressure. Remember, though, most of that pressure is going to be centered through your middle two fingers and your thumb, specifically this part of the thumb. Okay? This part of the thumb is less important because it's not that strong, especially against this leverage here. But this right here is going to be the base of support for biomechanically for everything in your saber. So that's there. Squeezing it, right, helps push everything into alignment. It's very difficult to have bad wrist alignment and squeeze. You're almost always going to roll your wrist forward like this so that it gets into a better position, right? It's also going to activate your rotator cuff, which is going to allow you to swing harder because your arm isn't flying out of its socket. So there we go there. Okay. Yes. Uh, yep, go ahead. Oh, you're still muted. Becky, there we go.
That's it, yeah. So I've had some difficulty hitting the floor when, and you had suggested increasing the angle. Does that mean bringing the saber farther? Oh, how can I say it? A larger trajectory.
Okay, the angle.
Not so diagonally. Bringing
Right.
it.
What I'm talking about with angle is this. If you're hitting the ground here like this, see, you're kind of doing something like that. You see, we're going to angle it up here. The other way is if you're holding it down here like this, you're hitting it. As you bring it down here like this, goes here. This is why we bring it to this hip.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
What's the difference? I mean, what's the difference between, you know, the finishing position for Sai and Cho? That. You see?
Yes.
On here. Boom. Just turning that hip forward. Okay. So when we're coming down here, sometimes the complaint is, oh, look, you're all out of, you're all open in the front. If you think so, that's fine. Come on in. But so that's what I meant by angle, I would say. All right. We have anything here? Let me check the super chat here. Hopefully, I don't know when these things come in here, but I'll try to see if I can get to some. Yeah, so, okay, so here's something. Would the time change of shortening a Dulan for practical purpose be an example of an ideal form versus live combat form? Like there's a training tool ideal for, well, okay, so an ideal form. Oh, I'll get here to you, Roberto, in a moment. Okay, so we talk about shortening your strikes and all of that kind of stuff. You can see doing a form at combat speed and the kind of normal speed in actually Darth Razor's old video of when he came here to Michigan. We did both. We did the form in both kind of manner, right? When you do a Dulan, you shouldn't really. You really shouldn't have to change anything. You don't want to change the length of the arc, right? So I don't want to do the Shicho Dulan by starting out and just going like that, because that's completely forgetting and ignoring the point of the form, right? Now, Are those the ideal situations? No, you're not ideally going to be in there. What those are is those are just ways that you pattern your body so that you can stay within a certain level of parameters when you're not thinking about it. Okay, so that's why the movements are so exaggerated and done in that way, right? I don't see a whole lot of value of taking one of these forms and turning it into a practical form, because the practical skills that you're building come from the things that most people think are impractical. That's kind of the point of this particular class, is the things that you think are impractical actually have a lot of practical purpose, just not necessarily in a way that people might be thinking of. Okay, so Roberto, you had one.
Yes, I had a question about the targeting on the sun gem as you're destroying the weapon. Against a spear, you'd be wrapping around, pushing the weapon to the side and then pushing it down. But if you are imagining you're going against a lightsaber, are you targeting between the hands to destroy the hilt? Are you targeting at the emitter? Or are you targeting at the blade, thinking of the same mechanics of pushing it to the side and pushing it out of alignment to destroy the threat of the weapon, rather than just imagining you're cutting physically cutting a lightsaber in half and destroying the actual physical part of the hilt?
Right. Yeah. Okay. I know what you mean. Actually, all three. You can do all of them. Right. That's kind of why we focus on that kind of horizontal action. Right. If I'm coming towards the hands, right, I've got that, and I kind of move my hands out of the way. Right. So I can hit the hands, and I can get another one there. If you're doing ASL, that's a good salvo. Right. Boom. Hands, head. Boom. Boom. Right. Now, the going for the emitter, sure, that's another thing. Okay, that will usually bring you up knuckle to knuckle with your opponent, right? So you'll kind of like, your sabers will be kind of next to each other. At least that's what happens to me a whole lot, right? And at that point, if that is allowed in what game you're playing, you can then grapple or just push it, or just kind of push it aside and come in here. And that's where your Sarlacc sweep is going to come in there, because now that your hands are bound up, right, you can't really do this. You could do the Sun Gem by just pushing it into them and trying to push them back. But another way you could do it is immediately transition into Sarlacc sweep by turning the body. And then you don't have to, you essentially circumvent their hands that way. Okay. Jeff, did you have a question?
Oh, sure.
Oh, okay. Sorry. All right. So do we have anything else here? Let me check the chat again. Yes. Okay. Oh, good. We have some reverse grip talk on the thing. We always love reverse grip stuff. We'll do a reverse grip episode someday. Reverse grip being this. All right. Well, I think we are at the end of everything here. So I will. Oh wait, no, we got one more here. James, what do you got?
So I know a lot of the strikes you want to lead with your body, or you lead with the sword, where your sword is ahead of your body. It sounds to me like on the Sarlacc sweeps, you're leading more with your body and the blade is following along. Is that true, or am I misreading that?
There's two different ways to think of leading with the hands and leading with the sword. You do not want your body necessarily, when you're advancing, you do not necessarily want your sword behind you, right? Now, that depends on context. Obviously, like with this one where you're coming in, let's say I parry somebody, like that. Now their blade's going across here, but they're right here, right? Well, there's not a whole lot of threat right here. So I don't really have to I don't really have to worry about it. So I'm kind of turning, you know, turning to that side. What I mean by the body moving the blade is this. I'm not, you see, I'm going to let my saber lead, right? My movement through space, but I'm going to turn it, whoops, by using my body. Okay? So by doing this here, okay? Again, like we said, like Jedi guard right here, this is a conceptual position, not necessarily something you'll get into a whole lot. You can assume it as a guard, hence why we call it a guard or whatever. But so that's kind of the difference. You can let things like lead your body and lead all of your motion and your intent, or you can and stay behind your sword and stay behind your action, because the last thing you want to happen is for you to engage the target when you are not in a biomechanically strong position. Okay, if you hit here, it's going to be difficult, right? Boom. So you always want this kind of out here like that. Okay, that does not necessarily mean trying to do everything out here with your hands out there. You do have to bring them back, but the trick is bringing them back and then bringing them back forward. Does that make sense? Okay. Very cool. All right, let's see what we got here. Yeah. So yes, so there we go. Do we have anything else from the group here? Yes, so this will be, you can access this on the channel here once we go off the air. The whole thing will be, if you're tuning in late. Okay. All right, so I guess that's it for us this Saturday. Next Saturday we have our workshop, so we will not be coming here, but probably doing putting up a couple of videos up during the week. So stay tuned for that. We've also got some other big news kind of coming up, some changes and some ways that people can kind of get involved here. I have to give this little shout out here. If people have been noticing what saber I'm using here, I'm using the Ying Chao Persuader from Ying Chao Sabers. I'm going to be doing a review on this. We've been looking at this as a good competition saber for ASL. So for the past 2 weeks, this is what I've been using here, and I've quite enjoyed it. So stay tuned for that. I'll be doing a little review on that pretty soon. Okay, well, from everybody else, from everybody here, from me, from thank you for everybody from showing up here, our students, people at home, anybody following us along here. We will see you around the interwebs. So keep on training, patience, practice, perseverance, and happy sabering. Thank you.